Okay, so our first night in Juneau, we had a pizza party gathering with some of the tribal members from the area, and they gave us a really nice performance. So they were singing and dancing, and afterwards each one of the dancers introduced themselves. So they gave their lineage and which tribes they came from, etc. And then the first man to introduce himself was Ray, and he touched on the history of the Tlingit tribe and what they had faced in the past and also what they were facing in the future. He also expressed to us how much he appreciated us coming to learn about the Tlingit history and the issues they face now, and it really meant a lot that we were making the effort to learn and understand to our abilities what they're going through. So it was a great way to start off the trip and really made us focus on why we were here.
We met a lot of people, and I was impressed by the people who talked about their history and culture, and so I learned the importance of understanding other cultures.
Going to Alaska and actually speaking with the natives was such a bigger experience than learning about the native culture in a classroom, because we actually got to have one-on-one conversations with the natives and hear their personal stories and how the issues directly affected them. We got to go to a homeless shelter and speak with the visitors to the homeless shelter and hear their stories and what they thought.
We were each able to go and meet with different individuals who use the services there, and I met with a man named Alan who had grown up on a smaller island. He was 100% Tlingit, and we discussed the differences between the American and the native culture, and one thing that really stood out to him was the value of nature and the pace at which the two cultures interacted. In his experience, the American culture is go, 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 not stopping, not really waiting to see the consequences, whereas in the native culture it's much more relaxed, more slow paced. And one thing that he really emphasized to me was this concept of silence, and how in the American culture we don't ever get time to really have that silence to look in and evaluate ourselves and reflect. And so that was a huge part of his life, and that's something I really took away from the group.
What I learned from this trip was that it is so important to be respectful and tolerant of everyone surrounding you, because that intolerance and disrespect leads to a variety of problems that I learned in Sitka and Juneau. It surprised me to learn that when the Russians came in the early 1900s, there was a lot of segregation, and I didn't fully understand that that was going on. For example, in restaurants there were signs that said no natives allowed or only whites, and that shocked me.
Before we left to go to Alaska, we read an article about how alcohol had affected the native lives, and because they were being pushed out of their own lands, they resorted to alcohol. It's the state that has the most domestic violence, and so we saw how alcoholism affected the domestic violence in Alaska. And we visited a domestic violence shelter in Sitka where abused women could come and seek shelter from their partners, and it was just really moving how people are making a difference there by helping them, and how the issues of race and the natives being pushed out of their own land had affected like family lives.
Coming in, a lot of us have heard about global warming, heard about deforestation, all those issues, but it really wasn't necessarily made present to us on a deeper level until we went up there. We met with government officials, we met with conservationists and tribal members, and each of them presented a different viewpoint on the environmental issues, and that really opened some of the students' eyes to the complexity that we face in trying to resolve these issues. I think the biggest thing that surprised me was just, as a leader, was the huge hospitality and generosity we were shown. That we were strangers to the vast majority of the people we were meeting. To have them take time out of their day to meet with us, oftentimes treating us to meals. On our last day in Juneau, we were invited to a salmon cookout in which they supplied all the food, they supplied the fire, they brought in a few speakers, and we were simply there to experience the culture.
2 elders were there, and one of the elders, Nora, read us her poem that she had written about how to cut and prepare salmon to eat, and the whole group that brought us there actually cooked us salmon while we listened to her poem, and it was so special and amazing. So a Native man, Bob Sam, talked to us about how we shouldn't feel guilty as white people, and that he's done being angry, he's forgiven the whites for what they did to his culture and his land.
Tlingit means the people, so it's embracing all the people, and that was part of the hospitality that they showed us because we were all people and all connected to them.
There's also this anger that still resides when he was giving his speech. I think that they have forgiven, but they definitely haven't forgotten what the whites did to them. And you can tell in every single Native person we talk to that they've forgiven, but they haven't forgotten.